Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to introduce my listeners today to Dr. Orlena Kerek, pediatric doctor turned family health advocate. We need to hear your whole story. How are you, Dr. Orlena?
I am amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So I just think this is a fun tidbit for the listeners is that you are currently in Spain. And what time is it?
It is 5 minutes past 8 in the evening.
Oh, so again, a huge thank you for being with me because that's about my shutdown time. And I'm impressed you're here awake and ready to talk. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we all need to know, were you family practice physician? What was your initial, you were in pediatrics.
Yeah, so in the UK, I'm from the UK, we have a slightly different system than other parts of the world. So I was a pediatric doctor, and all pediatric doctors in the UK work in hospital. So if you have a family problem, you go to your family doctor first, and then they send you on, if you're a child, to your pediatrician. So I was a hospital-based pediatric doctor, but doing that, we see all the outpatients as well. So all of our clinics.
Okay. And then, so when you left the UK, tell us your story. Like, how did that all happen? How did it transition medically with licensure? It seems stressful.
Well, yeah, okay. So here's my question. How long have you got? Because it's a really long story. Essentially, I like to say I moved to Spain with my eyes wide shut. And I had this idea that I would just move to Spain and I would carry on with my medical career. And that, the fact that they speak totally different language was something that, an obstacle that I would just surmount. It would be easy. I would get there. And to a certain extent, that did happen, but there were so many big differences. And essentially, they wanted me to go back and retrain. And, I had my postgraduate exams in pediatrics, which is, kind of a big deal. And they were like, oh, yeah, you have to go back and do your medical finals. I was like, really? That's ridiculous. So to cut a very long story short, I did work here for a little bit. Getting my degree recognized here took about a year. And I went back really to sort of verify to myself that I didn't want to carry on doing medicine, because by this stage I had started doing stuff online. At that time I was helping with picky eaters and helping kids eat healthily. Hey, guess what? I had picky eaters. I realized I needed to figure out what to do with these children of mine who refused to eat vegetables. But yeah, it was an interesting story. And I know you and I love to talk about emotions, but really it was the beginning of my emotional journey. It was really, like, at the time, hard work. And, when you're inside that story, oh my goodness, what is going on here? Like, it felt like I'd lost my identity. And on one level I had. What do you do to get out of that? But now I can happily look back and go, oh, wow, it's thanks to that experience and my children, who were obviously a cause of stress and still are to a certain extent. But I got the tools that I needed, and I started realizing things like, oh my goodness, emotions don't fall from the sky, that I have some control over my emotions. And, who's in charge of my life here? Do I does stuff randomly happen to me, or do I take control and, create goals and move towards those goals? So yeah, it was an amazing experience to come out of. At the time, it was hard work, all of those things, stressful, overwhelming, slightly ridiculous, given that I was living the dream life. All my friends would be like, oh, you're living the dream life. But inside there was this sort of turmoil and also a bit of guilt, because I was living the dream life, but I wasn't instantly happy. And I think that as well was another, little wake up call, a little bit like, hey, what's going on here?
I commend you so much, because I feel like I have nightmares over accidentally losing my dietitian's licensure, that there's this piece of me, oh my gosh, I've worked so hard for it and I can't imagine studying for it again. So for you to actually be up against that medically in your career, holy cow. And you handled it beautifully. It would also help our listeners. I have a lot of people who are mamas and grandmas, and for them to understand, you have 4 kids. Is that right?
I do. And they were all really close together. So my oldest was 4.5 when my twins were born. So I had 4 children under the age of 5. And yeah, it was hard work. I mean, when you're in the trenches, and you kind of just get on with it, don't you? You don't really have a chance. Like, people would look at me and go, how do you do it? And I'd be like, well, I take one day at a time. Like, I don't really have a choice. It's not like I'm Superwoman. I have to look after these children. I tell you what used to go through my head was like, I trained for so long to be a doctor. And what am I doing? My biggest thing is what to cook the kids for dinner. And then the second thought would be not that they're going to eat it anyhow, because they never eat anything that I cook. So,
I was thinking, it's all this like, well, I'm going to be a rock star in the kitchen and then no one eats my stuff. Like,
exactly. It's like, what did you do today? I cooked dinner again and nobody ate it again.
Oh my gosh. Which leads me into my next question for you, because on your website, you say goodbye to frustration. So at some point, these emotions all settled, you worked it out, and now you're out there coaching and teaching others how to get through it as well. So unpack that for us.
Yeah, well, so I teach 4 pillars. So, I'm looking at people who want to lead a healthy life, take control of their life, perhaps weight loss, perhaps emotional eating, but essentially it's putting in healthy living. And so I teach 4 pillars. I teach healthy eating. So healthy eating that you love, which obviously includes the emotional eating piece. Exercise that lights you up. And I really emphasize that lights you up bit. Like, exercise should be part of your life that you love and really enjoy, as opposed to, oh my goodness, I have to go to the gym and I really hate it. Like, that's not the way to live your life. Delicious, healthy sleep, because sleep is such an integral part of health and wellness and weight loss, which isn't really surprising. I don't know about you, but I'm like an angry bear when I don't get enough sleep.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting. The science behind it is really interesting, but we kind of knew that before all the scientists discovered why sleep was so important. And then the last piece is emotional wellness. And I kind of think it should be the first piece, but anyhow, it's my pillar number 4. And that includes stress, because stress is so important to healthy living and weight loss. And then it's really about creating what I call systems, habits, and routines. And I'm all about habits. And everyone always says to me, I want to do it without thinking. And I'm like, I love without thinking. But the reality of without thinking is it's a habit. And kind of that's the definition of a habit. It's something we do without thinking, which basically means you have to ingrain it into your way of being, so that when life happens, because when life always happens, that's what you do. And that's really my test of what a habit is what do you do when life happens? Do you turn to cakes and cookies and whatever, or are you eating the vegetables? That's what your habit is. That's what you can see. And I think people get a bit confused because they try and create habits and they think they've got this habit, but it's what I call a seedling habit. Then life happens. They all go backwards, disaster strikes. And that's when people start to think, oh my goodness, I'm a failure. Again, habits in what you think, habits in your emotion. It's all about habits. Habits are a kind of double-edged sword, because we can have good habits and bad habits. But when we start being intentional about our habits, that's when the gold dust really happens, that you can start going, oh, I'm going to make this habit of being happy, of enjoying exercise, of loving my healthy life. And that's when it all kind of falls together and you're doing everything that you really enjoy and you're reaching your goal of health and wellness.
Oh, so interesting. I love that you threw those 2 words together, a habit of happy. I mean, I don't think a lot of people think about chasing that down. I think that we want happiness and we want joy in our life, but that people throw that control out the window and don't feel like that they have that control over their happiness, that the happiness follows the other habits, versus chasing. Oh, that's good. I really like it.
Yeah, no, well, I think it's interesting. And I think, the reality with emotions is we can't control our emotions 100%. Obviously, our emotions are reactions to what happens, but we can choose how we react to our emotions. So we can choose, are we going to allow that emotion to last for 2 or 3 days? Say it's an emotion that doesn't really serve you. Your friend says something mean to you and you get upset about it. 3 days later on, you're still like in this gloom of, oh my goodness, I'm still really upset about it. Or do you have the tools to process that emotion and move on and go, yeah, my friend said something mean, I'm upset about it, or not upset about it because I've rethought it and think actually that's on her, kind of thing. And it lasts 5 minutes. And then I'm moving on and enjoying the rest of my life, So you get to the stage where it's like, well, there's nothing that life can throw at me that I can't cope with. And that doesn't mean, hey, I'm never going to be sad. And, it's normal to be sad at times. It's normal to be stressed. It's normal to have all of these things, but it's how do you act when that happens? How do you act when you realize, yeah, you know what, I'm really, really stressed. So what are you going to do? Are you going to look after yourself, or are you just going to carry on being stressed?
Right. I also like rewinding a second here with the seedling habit versus when they really are flowing for you, because what I've witnessed out of my clients is that sometimes the big life event happens and they've made it through it. Let's just take weight loss for an example. They've had weight loss. They have a tornado. This is a specific example. A tornado hit this client's house. And when that happened, this year of getting the house back, there was maintenance happening in the weight loss and she wasn't giving herself credit. Where I'm going, this is huge, right? Like most people would regain during this phase. And it's just kind of demonstrating your point of, is this a habit or am I faltering right back into my old ways? Do you notice that a lot of your clients really struggle to see their successes?
Oh, totally, totally. Like, I think that's another habit. It really is another habit because we are negatively wired. We're trained. Our brains function in a way that we're always looking for the danger, the thing that's going to trip us up. And you can see this in whatever people are doing. So say, for example, you're in contact with like 100 people in a day, and 99 of those people will walk away thinking, wow, that person gave me huge value. She was amazing. I loved her. You've got one person who complains at you. When you go home in the evening, which of those people are you thinking about? The 99 people who, walked away with a big smile on their face, or the one person who complained and said, oh my goodness. And it's the same with, habits. I like to walk people through what I call a 2-week reboot. And most people don't do it perfectly, which is kind of normal. But people will always say, the first time I'm on call with them, oh, yeah, I didn't do this perfectly. And I'm like, no, wait, tell me what you did well. And then I've done, 7 or 8 that made 7 or 8 big changes. But no, I'm going to focus on the one thing I didn't do. And so it's human nature. But again, we just need to train ourselves, and I always have to train myself. It's the same. You've got my 4 kids who are, complaining and screaming and stressful days. So I can focus on that one moment, which was hard work when my child was having a problem, or on all those amazing times when they're smiling and playing nicely and holding hands. But that's just what we consider normal life, right? Finding the value in those normal life, those beautiful moments, that's what we need to train ourselves to do.
I 100% agree. And I do talk on that too. Just when things come easy to us, like some people naturally drink a lot of water in their day, or some people naturally move a lot. And because it feels so natural and easy, they don't give themselves credit for it. Where it's like, wait, no, that's amazing. You just already have things that are flowing for you. So recognizing that too, not only what we're working on and it's winning, but what we already have.
And I think we're also trained to make changes, particularly when you're in a program like you and I do. So I see people who come and they make changes, and then we, meet up, and I say, okay, so what are your wins? And they're like, oh, well, just the same as, I just carried on going. And it's like, what do you mean just? Like, that's an amazing win. It is make changes and repeat. You don't have to continually make changes. It's not like, oh, this week we're going to do something different, and this week we're going to do something different. No. Like when I talk about healthy eating, I talk about vegetables. Eat more vegetables. You don't have to constantly change and find a new diet every single week. It's find what works for you and stick to it. And the sticking to it bit, like it's a bit boring. Like it's not boring. But when you're talking about it, it's like, yeah, I did the same thing. I did the same thing. But that's it, enjoying it.
Love that. Yeah. And it's a win. It's the same thing, but it's a win every week. Thank you for highlighting that. Yes. Yes.
And our brains like novelty. Our brains really do like novelty. And that's why we stop seeing it as a win, because we're like, oh, I've done that. I want something different now. But yeah, we have to train our brain. So I'm all for training our brains to work for us.
Awesome. Yes. I'm loving going through your pillars right now. I'm skipping around too, but let's bump over to the fitness part of it and just finding joy. I call it finding our fitness personality. You talk on this for a minute and give us a hope story of where you've seen someone really dislike movement and then all of a sudden find it flowing in their life.
Yeah, good question. Good question. So if I think about the people who are in my group program now, there's a lady who is loving tennis. Now, she played tennis before, but life happens. It's difficult to do that. So tennis is what really lights her up. So she's got that, it lights me up. But I always reckon you need to have more than one thing, particularly some sports are seasonal. Tennis is, summer, it's now winter, and it can be a bit difficult to fit these things in. So, and I always think as well, you never know what's going to happen. Like you might not be able to make whatever activity it is you do. I always recommend people do something first thing in the morning, just a short, 7-minute workout or 10-minute yoga session, something really that just moves all your muscles. But so that, if I don't do anything else today, I've done a small thing. And so we're working on making that into a habit for her, but a habit where it's an actual habit rather than that seedling habit. It's like an oak tree habit. It's like, oh, I just kind of get out of bed now and I do it and I enjoy it. And I think that's the enjoyment bit is really key. And I always say to people, you have to give things a bit of time. You can't just go, okay, I'm going to choose running. And then after about 3 days, I'm like, oh, I don't like running. It's a bit hard work. Yes, it is hard work because your body's not used to doing it. And that does change after a period of time. But there are some activities that you're going to like more than others. So you have to kind of train yourself to like something whilst being honest with yourself. If it's something that after a few months you've tried to enjoy it and you really dislike it, then you need to find something else. And it can be dancing or something fun. My sister-in-law does something called dragon boating. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I want to do dragon boating, but they don't do it around here. So I can't.
Wah, wah. I've never even heard of that. You're going to have to.
Sounds amazing. They have she lives in Australia and they have rowing boats, 7 or 8 people in a row. And I think they go drumming and rowing. And I'm like, wow, that sounds incredible. But yeah, I've been thinking I need to put it on my bucket list of get a dragon boat and find a team, but I just don't have the time at the moment.
You're going to have to be the person who starts that. These are such great examples, though, because it's very much thinking outside of the box. And you also interweaved permission into there that, if you keep beating down this same door and you continue to not find enjoyment within that, move on, find something else. And don't worry if everybody else seems to love this and for some reason you don't. You got to find your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, dragon boating. That is going to stick with me. I'm going to look that up. So let's go back to the fact that you do have a really nice full family. I mean, 4 kids. You mentioned delicious sleep in one of your pillars. And my instant question to you is, I don't understand how you have 4 children. I stopped at 2 and it seriously was the sleep thing. I struggled. I became not a nice person in those moments of I'm so tired. My kid's waking up every second. I can get through this pregnancy in these 2 years after pregnancy, but I don't know if I could have done it 2 more times. You're amazing. You're my hero.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I tell you what, none of my kids slept well. I remember when I was pregnant with my first son, and my husband said to me, oh, it's okay. I will teach our child to sleep. Because my husband's one of those really annoying people who sleeps like a dormouse, head on pillow, fast asleep. And I'll put the light on. I'll be chasing mosquitoes around the room, jumping all over the place. I'm like, how are you still asleep? How does that work? It's so frustrating. So I thought, oh, I believed him. So stupid. Did he? No, he didn't. My child didn't sleep for ages and ages. The second child still didn't sleep. And then I had twins. And hey, guess what? I had the dream sleeper. I was like, oh, wow, I've got one child who's a dream sleeper. Unfortunately, her twin was not a dream sleeper. So, they say that for each child, adults get they lose 5 years of sleep, basically.
I do.
Yeah, I think it's probably true. But it does overlap, obviously. So having 4 children so close together probably helped. And to be honest, it was before I started reading about sleep, which was probably just as well. Having said that, the other thing, though, is that if you are breastfeeding, and I breastfed all of my kids, you do get hormones that protect you a bit from that sleep deprivation. So if you have kids, if you're about to have a baby, that is one of the benefits, one of the many benefits of breastfeeding, is that you do feel less, I guess, to be perfectly honest, the downside is that you do end up breastfeeding at nighttime more because that's when your milk is available. Whereas if you bottle feed your baby, you can kind of choose when to give them the bottle. But you do get protected from that sleep deprivation.
I love that you're honing in on sleep, and we don't have to go into all the nitty gritty details, but just remind our listeners one more time, like, this is not an optional, you should, it'll help. It's like, it's mandatory. You go into your soapbox on sleep.
Yeah. Like, so on my podcast, I interviewed a lady called Dr. Sally Norton, who is weight loss surgeon. And she gets interviewed on like lots of newspapers in the UK. And when we were chatting, she was basically saying the one most important thing that you can do if you want to lose weight is look after your sleep. It's that important. And, I'm always talking about the changes that we can make. And I always say, nutrition is really where you want to be focused. But that's mostly because the people I work with, they can't do much to change their sleep. They're looking after kids. So, but if you can sort out your sleep, that's the number one thing. And we know this as well. Like, I know when I'm sleep deprived, I just kind of want to wrap myself up in a blanket and eat more food. And it does affect your appetite. So if weight loss is your goal, it affects your appetite and it affects your stress hormones, which also affect your weight loss. But also, there are so many benefits in terms of health, productivity. Oh, there's so many interesting books written on it as well. Go and read the books on science about it. But, you could talk about sleep for weeks, but it's just absolutely fascinating. And as a society, we're beginning to realize all the important things about sleep, but we still don't prioritize it. We still think of it as, we have to burn the candle at both ends. I tell you, out of some of the books that I've read, one is called Why We Sleep by a guy called Matt Walker. And in it, he's got I love these little pictures. They're spiders who have done spiders' webs, and each spider is on like a different drug, like one of them's taking caffeine, and I think one's on alcohol, and perhaps, I don't know exactly. And they show like the different spider webs of what goes wrong when you're on all these different drugs. And the one that is sleep deprived is like all over the place. It's the worst of all of them. And you're like, yeah, if I wanted a spider's web, I definitely don't want that spider web. But it's the same for us. It's the same for our brains as well. And the scary thing is we often kind of recognize that we're not getting enough sleep, but we don't really recognize when we're sleep deprived. If we're talking about car accidents, sleep deprived car accidents are actually worse than people who are drink driving, because you kind of like your entire body shuts out for a bit. So there's no response as opposed to a delayed response. So, it's scary stuff. One thing I think that people don't really realize is how amazing you can feel with just a few changes to your life. And sleep is one of those changes.
Right. It feels like it should be a low-hanging fruit, whether or not it feels like that in your life at the moment, especially again, if it's the new mom listening or even our older population who just maybe hormonally is really struggling with sleep. It doesn't feel like an easy change, but like you're saying, really worth looking into and working on.
Just another habit. It is just a habit. Like, we have this habit of staying up late, and I have really prioritized my own sleep for the last, few years. And I go to bed at 10:30. But my body just tells me, like, as you say, like late at night, my brain just starts to melt. And, I have this cutoff, which is sort of 9:00. And then after that, I can't do work. I definitely can't do client calls and podcasts and things like that. I can do winding down and getting into bed, but my body tells me it's time for you to go to sleep now. And that's how it should be.
It's just that we do things like over caffeinate or have a drink or, things that we mute our natural body's senses that are telling us go to bed.
Yes, socializing is another thing. And so we use those things to override our sleep sensations. It's really interesting, actually. My mother-in-law came over in the summer and they took us out to a restaurant, which was very kind of them. And I drove, so I didn't drink any alcohol at all. And it was like, I've hardly done any socializing in the last few years. So it was a really interesting experience because of that. But also it was really interesting to go, out to a big posh meal without any alcohol. And the one thing I noticed was that I felt really, really tired just at that time because we stayed up late. My body was kind of going, it's not that I'm not enjoying myself. I'm just tired. And I know that when we drink alcohol, that's what we're kind of masking, that tiredness feeling, and just getting into that buzz of alcohol and going, hey, I'm having a good time.
Right.
On a side note, if you want to drink alcohol, I recommend drinking it earlier in the evening at about 5 o'clock. So it doesn't affect your sleep, because it does really affect your sleep.
It does. I actually watched an interview with Matthew, the author of the book that you were mentioning, and he was like, people are not going to I'm not popular on this one, but even one drink in the evening does mess with your sleep. So,
yes, but so the workaround, if you want to have a workaround, is to have it earlier in the evening. So like just not a lot of alcohol, but one glass of wine or a beer at say 5 o'clock. And that allows your body to metabolize it before you go to sleep.
Interesting.
Not that I'm advocating alcohol, because alcohol is bad and not good for you, but in moderation.
Disclaimers. So you mentioned this too. I haven't heard this as an actual term, and I feel like you used it as a term, lifestyle disease. And I'm kind of totally switching us over for a second, but I was reading something of yours that you had huge frustrations that you're treating individuals when you were in your practice that had lifestyle disease. And if they would have just shifted their lifestyle or just changed, that they had a lot more control over their disease state than they realized. Is this like family or pediatrics, or where were you?
No, that was an adult. So as part of my training to begin with in England, you have to do adult medicine. So I was doing adult medicine and on adult wards. You do see lifestyle change in pediatrics, which is essentially adult smoking and affecting the children. And also the big thing I think in pediatrics is children learning habits from their adults. And this is from their parents. This is partly why I pivoted to do healthy living for mums, because the best way to teach kids is to demonstrate healthy living. And essentially, the research shows that if children grow up with a family that's eating healthily and living healthily, they're just going to follow suit. And you don't really need to do very much other than not connect emotions with eating.
Right.
Going back to your question on lifestyle diseases, it is amazing. I mean, we'll just take COVID out of the equation right now, because I haven't really looked at statistics since then, because obviously there is an impact of, obviously COVID changes the statistics, but there is still an impact as well on how COVID affects different people. But just taking that out of the equation at the moment and looking at all the other people in the top, I think it's in the top 25 causes of death, like 12 of them are lifestyle disease. And this is worldwide. And it's incredible. It's just incredible. And I think a lot of people really don't realize the impact of what they're doing on their health until it is too late. So things like diabetes and heart disease, a lot of cancers. Now, cancer is one of those things. You can't ever reduce your risk of cancer to zero, but you can hugely influence it. Obesity itself comes with huge, great complications. I have an uncle who I don't know very well, and sadly, he died a few years ago of type 2 diabetes, which A, is preventable in the first place, but secondly, once it's diagnosed, there's an awful lot of things that you can do to reverse the problems. And sadly, I suspect he was probably offered the opportunity and he didn't take it because he probably didn't realize. And because he was probably so entrenched in his habits, in the way he thought and his lifestyle. But the reality is once you've changed those habits, your brain doesn't care what the habit is. So you might be sitting there going, and this is one of the things I see a lot with people who are embarking on that healthy eating. So I'm busy saying, you're going to love healthy eating. And they're like, I don't really believe you. And I'm like, look, just come with me. You're going to love it anyhow. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'm not buying this, but come on, let's just do it.
You're right.
And so when you're standing there, it just feels like, oh my goodness, it's so daunting. It's so different. And then you go on this journey, what I call the rickety bridge, but you go on this journey and then you come out the other side and you found systems and habits and routines that work for you. You found the things that work for you. You don't have to like all of the vegetables. You don't have to do all of the exercise. You just have to find what works for you. And there is something that you can enjoy that's healthy. You can make a healthy lifestyle that suits you. And when you're there, you're loving your life, you're enjoying it, and you've just done a huge U-turn on all the risk factors for those life disease. And that is the heartbreaking thing, is it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be, oh, you're going to hate this. You know, what's that joke about? I'm going to say this really badly, but there's a guy who goes to the doctor and says, oh, you know, they say that if you give up alcohol and give up sugar and give up all of these things, you'll live you'll live forever. And the doctor says, no, you won't live forever. It just feels like you're going to live forever because, you know, you're leading such an austere life. But it doesn't have to be like that. No, right. Exactly. And I think that's the heartbreaking thing, is that, you know, coming back to this, people don't realize how close they are to feeling amazing. And essentially, if you're feeling amazing, then that's because you're looking after your body and doing the things that are going to look after your body and help your body. And it's not huge changes. You know, having 8 hours of sleep at nighttime, that's not that much of a hardship, is it? You know, once you're in the habit of it, you can go, oh, I really like my sleep. I really enjoy my sleep. Walking, exercise doesn't have to be difficult. It can be walking. And these changes, they're such small changes, but they have such an amazingly big impact.
Thank you. This was so described so perfectly. And it just shows what a coach can do for you. And I had so many things like coming to my mind there. First of all, when somebody gets that first diagnosis, or they're even just reading, like, the scare tactics don't work. You know, the second that we're in this frightened phase, then we're scared. We don't want to take those things. Everything feels deprivational. And then you think about a coach, and it's like, if somebody can give you their full trust and faith that there is hope on the other side, they can't see it yet. You can see it, you know it's there, and you know how to get them there. That's the beautiful thing about having somebody handhold us, so that, okay, just like you said, get the sleep, get the walking, and then we'll tackle something else. And then we'll tackle something else. And at some point you don't care. Like you said, I feel like I wish we could wrap our arms around and take those individuals who are just so fearful and so discouraged. I had a patient one time when I was working back at the hospital, and she was telling me her story, and she was like, I was wheelchair bound. And when I was in that spot, living in the wheelchair more than out of the wheelchair because of weight, and then because of weight, because of disease, and because of disease, because of joints, you know, she was like, I was ready to throw in the towel. I was ready to not be here anymore. And then she put her faith in some weight loss, you know, and life came back, and she's like, I can't imagine not being here. But I was mentally there at one point. And so I don't know. I just feel the need to tell people this, because again, back to you, if you grab a coach, they'll get you there.
Well, yeah. Yes, thank you. And I think shouting out to coaches, I see so many people, and I do see this changing a bit, but so many people have this attitude of, I ought to be able to do this by myself. And not just that, you know, like the person I'm working with, but then their partner will be like, I thought you could do this by yourself. And here's the reality. You are doing it by yourself. Yes. But it's a bit like this. I think of the analogy of, like, you know, we send our kids to school so that they can learn to read and write. And obviously that child is learning to read and write, but we don't expect them to go to school and study the books by themselves with no help and go, you're not allowed a teacher. You just have to figure this out for yourself. Like, we don't do that. Of course, we say you have to pay attention to your teachers and go and learn maths from your teachers and go and learn all these different things. But somehow, when it comes to the way we eat and exercise, because we all eat and we all move our bodies, we kind of think, oh, I don't need any help with that. But it's a kind of ridiculous thing. We go and do courses and learning for absolutely everything in our lives. You know, you don't want to go to a doctor who just sort of made it up, just went, hey, I'm a doctor. I'd much rather go to a doctor who's been to a medical school, or a dietitian who's been through dietitian training. But yeah, somehow we expect ourselves to be able to eat healthily. And, you know, I just think there's nothing wrong with having help. In fact, I think asking for help that really supports you is just an amazing thing to do. It's an amazing gift to give yourself. And, you know, again, on my soapbox, so many mothers and women don't prioritize themselves. They put themselves at the end of the list. And, you know, I was there as well. But there is definitely this, oh, I have to look after my kids and I have to do this. There's a long list of things. And, you know, right at the bottom is, one day I'll get to self-care. And, you know, you either have a crisis or some kind of wake up call where you're just kind of thinking, this is not the life. That was what happened to me. This is not the life I envisaged for myself. What am I going to do about it? And it's not selfish to look after yourself. Of course, you are so much more helpful to everybody else. You've got so much more energy to give for whatever it is that is important to you if you're looking after yourself.
Right. And like you said, you mentioned people feel weak by asking for help, where it's the polar opposite. It's strong. It takes a lot of strength to ask for help. And you mentioning with kids, at different phases, I do feel like there are seasons where sometimes the ability to get around to your own self-care might not truly realistically be there at the moment. However, we have to keep reassessing when that life phase change happens. Now, am I in a spot where I could do that now? Or is it just layered in excuses that I've been so used to living in? Because I think that's hard. I always call it like almost a little PTSD from those earlier childhood years, that it's like, nope, life's different now. So I could change a little. I don't know. Yes. I think, again, it just comes back to habits in the way that we think. But we get used to looking after our kids and there being zero time. Because, let's face it, when you've got a newborn baby, they need care 24/7. But then it goes to 23 and a half hours. You've got half an hour where you're allowed to shower. But do you know what I mean? You're right, we have to keep looking out for that moment. And, I would say for people who've got really young babies, just take whatever help is offered to you. And, everyone is in a different situation. My mother has never changed a nappy as a grandmother, a diaper, as you would say. So it depends. But if people are offering to help, then take them. And there are ways that you can do small amounts of self-care. It doesn't have to be, spending hours on self-care. It can be small amounts. I started swimming years ago when my children were going to swimming classes. And I remember, it's a bit of a funny story, actually, but my husband was the twins were little. So I was at home with them, looking after them. And he took the older two to swimming classes. And one day he came back going, Dante, my second son, he didn't want to swim. So he didn't swim. And when you're like, okay, I will go next week and we will gently but firmly make sure he enters the swimming pool, as mothers do. And then I had to go and sit upstairs in the balcony overlooking, which was I like watching my kids swim, but watching them swim for 45 minutes was a little bit boring. And also it was really super hot up there. And I was just like, why aren't I in that pool swimming? And the next week I went swimming and, I had 4 small kids and personal space. I love cuddles, but they would just be jumping on me the whole time. And I just, exactly. Remember being in that swimming pool, just going, ooh, space. And people, I can swim in an entire line without expecting somebody to jump on me or cuddle me. And there's a time when that kind of, you perceive that as a threat, that sort of like, I'm going to fling myself on you. Your body's like, oh, really? Children, they don't enter gently, do they? They just throw themselves on you. Yeah, exactly. So that's how I started swimming. My kids going to the swimming pool, me just, taking that 45 minutes of being able to enter it. And that journey has, that was years ago, but that journey now in the summer, I swim in the sea because we live very close to the sea, and I swim 2.5 kilometers every day in the summer, not because I feel, oh my goodness, that's the amount of exercise I need to do, but because I feel, oh my goodness, I love swimming in the sea. It just is so refreshing. And I miss it in the winter. I still go in the winter and it's very cold, but I'm itching for it to be summer so I can go every single day at 7 a.m. because that's when I love going most of all. Are you in a wetsuit in the winter, or is it not that cold?
That is another interesting question. Yes, I am in a wetsuit, and my husband bought me some beautiful socks, like neoprene socks, which are amazing. My friend the other day, so I swim with a swimming partner, she said, why don't we go without our wetsuits? And I was like, oh, if we have to, okay. And it was interesting. My heart rate was 25 more than normal for the whole time. And whilst I was swimming, it was cold, but quite nice. But when I get out, it takes me such a long time to recover. My hands stop working and my sort of body shuts down a bit. And I'm a bit I'm not sure that this is worth the price of entry. I think I might just stick to my wetsuit. And I think you need to build up your resilience for doing.
Yeah, that could very quickly make me not want to go, lose the love. I hate
and
being cold.
it's still reasonably cold with the wetsuit on, but not unbearably. But the water is still beautiful, and there are still beautiful fish, and it's still amazing.
I'm drooling over here. Like, that sounds amazing. As we start to wrap up here, which I don't want to, but if someone were to work with you, I want to make sure that somebody has a clear understanding of what that would look like. Is it individual? Is it group? Is it courses? What do you do on your end?
Thank you so much for asking. I do both. So I do one-on-one, but what I'm really doing is moving towards my group program. And I'm just launching a new 3-month group program, which is called Eliminate Emotional Eating, which is the same as my long group program, but it's like 3 months and we're really focusing on emotional eating and obviously paying attention to healthy eating and all the other 4 pillars. And then I have a longer group program as well.
Nice. Okay. And to reach you, where's your best? Is it your website?
Yeah. So thank you again for asking. My website is drorlena.com. So that's drorlena.com. And I have a Facebook group and a podcast with amazing guests.
I know, in blogs, like when I jumped on your website, I was like, oh, I could spend hours on here. I'm loving this. You have great content out there, great testimonials. And so, and just my listeners know this, but everything will be in the show notes as well. If you missed any of that, if you're folding laundry, if you're out running, you can come back to it that way. Okay. If you had one last bit, we've already got so much of your wisdom today, but that you hope and pray that our listeners heard today from you, what would that one little nugget be?
So I think this is my favorite quote, and it is: the best thing you can give your kids is your own happiness. And the second best thing is vegetables.
Oh, so good.
I think it wraps up my message, which is look after yourself and enjoy it, and enjoy your kids as well, and they will become healthy.
Yes. So good. We're going to need to pull you back on because we didn't even really touch on the kid component of this. And I know that a lot of moms want to talk more emotional eating with them too, and picky eaters and all that fun stuff. So maybe a part 2 is in our future.
Fabulous. And I look forward to having you on my podcast as well.
I'm so excited. Yes. This is not goodbye then. This is just till next time. And thank you again for giving us your evening. That's a really big deal. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.